It's time for This Week in Computer Hardware with Ryan Shrout, episode 49. Coming up, a look at USB 3.0, some honkin' great expensive motherboards and cases for the honkin' great expensive motherboard, and a 3D video. It's all coming up with This Week in Computer Hardware. Twitch is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, with PC Perspective's Ryan Shrout, episode 49 for December 12th, 2009, USB 3D. This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by the new voice-activated Sync, featuring hands-free calling, music search, and turn-by-turn navigation. Available exclusively on Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. For more details, visit syncmyridepodcast.com. It's time for Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. We talk about all the latest computer hardware news, advances, things you can buy, things you can drool over. Ryan Shrout is here from PC Perspective. Hey, Ryan.
Hello, how are you?
PCper.com. I'm great. Ryan's got the world's greatest job. He gets to see all this stuff the minute it comes out. Gets to play with it.
Yes.
It's awesome. You're still. Did you finish your? We talked about this last week. Your new high-end desktop with USB 3 and all that.
Yeah. Got a new system built for me, kind of at the end of Thanksgiving weekend, basically. And,
how's it for gaming? Did you put the Radeon 5000 in it?
Yeah, I put a Radeon 5870 in there, so obviously it's going to do fantastic for gaming. Now, unfortunately, on my desk, I only have room for 2 monitors. They're both 30 inches, so I'm not really complaining. But
that should do.
Yeah. So as for gaming, we're still gaming on a single 30-inch panel. Using 2 monitors is not that great an idea because you have the bezel right down the middle of where your focus point is supposed to be. So you really need a third to make it a. Yeah.
I didn't think of that, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's obviously a pretty big distraction looking at a 1 inch on each side monitor, so 2-inch bezel down the center of what you're supposed to be looking at. So hopefully we'll upgrade desks soon, and then another 30-inch monitor will accidentally get ordered. And
it's funny. I think people are going to think, this country, we're so funny. I mean, our food portions are massive. People come from other countries and go, "Oh my God, how much are you going to eat of that?" It's like this. It's not a plate. It's a serving platter that you eat everything on it. Our
Correct.
Cars are massive. We just love big things in this country. We supersize everything. And now we're going to have to start supersizing our desks because we want 3 24s or 3 30-inch monitors on them.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. That's true, though.
It's America. Welcome.
I've got 30-inch monitors pretty much at my house and at the office and on all kinds of different places. And but obviously I'm outside the norm, at least for computer displays. I have a big truck fitting into the American culture that way. But, I still get, wow, that's a huge monitor. Never seen a display that big before when friends and family come over. Because, they don't, you go to Best Buy and stuff like that. They don't sell 30-inch panels. Maybe they sell 27.
Yeah,
so
30's big. Although there are some, and I think Colleen's among them, and I think most of my staff who prefer 24s, 2 or 3 24s over a couple of 30s. But you like the 30s.
Yeah. I don't mind swiveling my head to look at everything.
You like to use your peripheral vision. It's good for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good exercise for the eyes.
I remember when I had a 30, and I loved it. I don't have room on my desk for a 30.
No, I know. We talked about you having 14 computers surrounding you or something like that.
So if I had a 30, I just, it just overpowers it. So, Colleen has my 30. Maybe, actually, I guess we gave it to Eric. One of the editors has my 30. But
they need it. When you're doing that kind of work, you need the real estate.
But I have seen studies that say big monitors are good for productivity. So you could show that to your boss and say, "Boss, I need a 30."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I don't have to show it to anybody. Now, before we get started in the news items, I did have a couple of things I wanted to show off that we actually just got in. One of them is actually, you talked about Allyn being in the chat room with us. This is something that he will probably drool over. Oh. And this is a new SSD that he hasn't seen yet. It's really a prototype drive. It's not really a solid-state drive that you can actually install and put in your computer, but it's the first SATA 6G solid-state drive. So this will should run at much higher throughput speeds than current SSDs. I think the only test I actually got to complete on it before I had to run out and do this very show was about 310 megabytes per second sustained read speeds off of this one drive, which I think if we compare that to, Allyn will check me on this, what are we talking, like in the 200 range for the current SSDs? So, you know, when we first talked about SATA 6G, I wasn't very impressed with it because I was testing it with spindle-based hard drives that don't even really come close to maxing out the SATA 3G connection that we're at now. Right.
So just so people know, SATA 1 was 2 gigabits per second, 1 gigabits per second. No, 1.5 gigabits per second. Then it was 3 gigabits per second, and the newest version of SATA is 6 gigabits.
6 gigabits
per second.
Per second.
Which is, what is that, like 800 meg? What is it? You have to multiply by 8. So
divided by 8. So
700. 700
should be close to 600. Should be close to 600 megabytes. Something like that.
In real speeds.
Right.
Are we seeing SATA 3 motherboards? That new motherboard you got is a SATA 3.
Right. Actually, I have now two motherboards in house that have integrated SATA 6G and
what
integrated
chipset
USB
do they need? Is it a chipset thing? Or a controller thing? It's all using external logic right now. Okay.
So
no chipset supports this natively.
No native chipset. Yeah, exactly. So it's a Marvell 9123 is the controller name, and then USB 3.0 is the same thing. It's an external chip. It's an NEC chip is the only implementation I've seen so far.
But you raise a good point, which is that the hard drives aren't fast enough to see the difference yet, although these SSD drives are, I guess, now the first drives we've seen that really have that kind of throughput. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean, hundreds of megabytes a second. That's a lot. Right.
If you remember, Allyn said last week that the SSD from OCZ, the one they called Colossus, that was the bigger 3.5-inch drive as opposed to this 2.5-inch drive, was basically maxing out the SATA 3.0 gigabits per second link speed that exists on pretty much all motherboards today. And it's really taking SSDs to push that bandwidth limit. So not only, you know, we always knew SSDs were fast in terms of latency. You know, you get that 0.1 millisecond access time or less. Now we're going to push throughput as well with these drives. Still obviously behind in capacity, but speed we're taking to a different level.
But imagine copying 1.5 gigabytes every 2 seconds or maybe 3 seconds.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? Oh. And then the other thing I want to show off real quick, we just got this in. I'm going to start doing some testing out. This is the new HP Mini 311. This is the Atom plus NVIDIA Ion.
Yes. Yep. Is that the first with Ion?
Yes. Actually, I think it might be the second one. No, I'm going to say it's the first one. It's the first one that's actually available that you could buy and purchase. It wasn't like a long-term pre-order. It's got Windows 7 Home Premium on it. It's actually, you know, I turned it on and started playing with it right away. And the very first thing I noticed is it does not come with Flash 10.1 installed, obviously, because it's a beta.
Right.
And HP wouldn't put it on there. So very first thing I did was load up one of our 720p HD video reviews, and it was choppy as all get out.
Oh, no.
So
that's too bad.
Next thing, install Flash 10.1 on it, and it should make it a completely different experience on that. That's obviously one of the main focal points of the review we'll be working on.
I'm sure you saw the CrunchPad renamed Juju tablet, and they're showing, and it's an Atom-based tablet, and they're showing, they claim 1080p video running smoothly. It's got to have an Ion chipset in it. I mean, you just can't do that with an Intel graphics.
Depending on what Atom CPU, if they're using the upcoming Pine Trail processor platform from Intel, they claim to have support for up to 720p HD video, but if they're showing 1080p, then yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, boy, 1080 does.
But they're being pretty secretive about those specs, aren't they?
Yeah, it's who knows, you know. For all we know, that could have been hooked up to a Cray behind the scenes. You can't.
Right. You can ask Colleen though. I know she saw a tablet that was sitting in front of NVIDIA's CEO at some press event or whatever, and they ended up demoing it. And it looked very similar to that. It wasn't exactly the same thing, but it was a tablet with a Tegra chip in it, I believe.
Tegra would make a big difference.
Right.
They're saying, so people in Gadget was saying, we watched the boot up, and it was, I think, an Atom 1.6 gigahertz Atom.
Right. Oh, okay.
So what's the name of the Mini again? Is it a 110?
311.
It's the 311, the new HP Mini 311.
Yep.
Wow. I think now you're talking really a notebook, not a netbook, if you've got an Ion.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, again, I haven't really spent a whole lot of time with it, but I mean, I like the keyboard on it. So far, the touchpad I'm kind of still doubtful on, but I mean it's almost usable as your everyday notebook. You know, I'm sitting here next to my Lenovo 12.1, so this has got to be an 11-inch screen on the HP Mini. So I mean, it's close.
I'm looking on Amazon, and they've got it for $329.
Yeah, I mean, how can you? I mean,
wow,
that's such a low cost for.
Now that's with only 1 gigabyte of RAM.
Yeah, now remember that's a requirement of Windows still.
But you could add. You can most of these you can open them up. It's cheap, $10 to put another one in.
Easy to do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's using the N270 Atom, so it's the slower Atom still.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
How soon before the faster Atom?
We're going to see at CES, you and I will both see quite a few systems demoing this hardware
So
out.
we should wait. If you wanted to buy a netbook, you might want to wait till January, February.
Yeah, I would say, you know, by CES, we'll know exactly when you'll be able to buy the Pine Trail based systems. I'm not 100% sure that they'll actually be available in January. But it seems likely that some of them will. But I'll also be curious to see how they compete in terms of price. Whether or not Intel's going to kind of they're realizing that Pine Trail is going to completely obliterate the need for like a Celeron line of processors. So maybe they're going to jack up the price a little bit to compensate in that regard. So we'll have to see.
Well, here's one thing we know won't be in it: the Larrabee.
Yes.
What happened? We had this story in Mac Break Weekly that the rumor was Apple wouldn't use a Larrabee because they thought the integrated graphics were crap. Now it looks like no one's going to use it. That's different.
That was different. That was the rumor for the Macs were that they weren't going to use Arendelle.
Oh, that's right, Arendelle.
Because it had integrated graphics.
Right.
Larrabee was Intel's discrete graphics project that they had
System
been
on a
working
chip?
on since. No, just a discrete GPU to compete against NVIDIA and ATI.
Oh, really?
In the world of gaming and graphics, and also for high performance computing and stream processing, things that NVIDIA's CUDA protocols and that kind of stuff are good at doing as well. This was supposed to be, remember, it was rumored to be anywhere from 24 to 48 individual x86 cores on a single chip, with some very specific hardware for graphics and that kind of thing. We'd been talking about it really since early 2006, and just this last week now, Intel officially came out with a statement where they say, I actually have the quote on here, Larrabee silicon and software development are behind where we hoped to be at this point in the project. As a result, our first Larrabee product will not be launched as a standalone discrete graphics product.
Wow. That does not happen too often with Intel.
It does not happen too often that Intel fails at doing something, which is essentially what they are admitting at this point. We kind of saw the writing on the wall over the last 6 months or so. Last September, October, we went to the Intel Developer Forum, which is where Intel, talks about their new hardware, what's coming up, how software developers can take advantage of it. That's it's one of our best shows in terms of going there and getting news that's actually relevant and always interesting. And we had heard that there was going to be Larrabee demonstrations there, but the Larrabee demonstration was really completely, it was the worst demo I'd ever seen. And they did it during a keynote, and it was a still image of some animation it was running a ray tracing engine for Quake 4, I believe, like an engine that they had converted to ray tracing that ran on Larrabee, we were told pretty well. But it was the same demo we had seen the year before, and probably 6 months before that, running just in software on a whole bunch of processors. So
I love this cartoon. Where did this come? This is from NVIDIA.com.
Yes, yes.
Intel's sitting on Santa's lap. Santa's obviously just asked it, "What do you want for Christmas, little boy?" And Intel says, "A GPU." I guess they're not getting it.
Yeah. It must have been bad. Oh, maybe there was that $1.5 billion settlement or something.
Getting a little coal in the RAM bus there.
So what's really interesting about this cancellation is, as you mentioned, Intel doesn't admit defeat very often. They are officially admitting defeat here. Wow. What I find interesting is that they could have. I don't know why they came out and said, you know what, we're canceling this version of the project. We might come out with something maybe in the second half of 2010 where we'll start to talk about discrete graphics again. Why they didn't just delay it some more, I don't know. It seems like their PR people would have been pretty good at just kind of coming up with something else to show and something else to show. I don't know what advantage they get by officially killing it publicly as opposed to just killing it internally, or maybe they just knew it was going to get, the word was going to get out if the project was kind of killed internally. But it was a very difficult project they were attempting to pursue anyway. They were basically looking to make 3D graphics software programmable. If you remember back in the days before 3D accelerators, say Quake, when it first came out, it came with a software renderer that would run solely on the processor.
Is this like OpenCL, or is that something different?
This was going to be different. OpenCL tries to convert. OpenCL will run on GPUs and it will run on CPUs, and it's supposed to be smart enough to figure out which workloads work best on both.
So it's a higher level, more intelligent.
Right. Yeah. Larrabee was supposed to be, hey, look, we can make a mini-core processor that can do just as much good for the graphics world as NVIDIA and ATI's current GPU generations, and you'll get advantages of, you don't have to worry about OpenCL directly because it's x86. You know how to program for x86, so you would be able to write these high-performance applications for Larrabee directly as well. I mean, it was an interesting idea. You could, if it had worked, you could have run your graphics, your artificial intelligence, you could have run all kinds of code just on this processor if they had been able to get it all running correctly. But obviously, they've taken a big hit here, and it's obviously good news for NVIDIA and ATI. I put in the show notes here that both of their stock prices went up pretty dramatically the next 2 days after Intel admitted that they were not going to enter into the discrete graphics market. I think it was like 8.5% for AMD and 13% for NVIDIA. Those are pretty big jumps.
Why is this so hard? You'd think Intel would have the brain power or could buy the brain power to do this.
I think Intel could probably make a good GPU if they wanted to make a GPU just like everybody else. I think Intel has the money, and you're right, they could buy the brain power away from NVIDIA and ATI directly if they wanted to make a GPU that would compete on the same level with the same hardware constructs. But they wanted to do something completely different. They thought they were going to revolutionize computing by making this mini core part. I mean, a 48-core processor with vector extensions and dedicated texture hardware would completely revolutionize the way people program for games, and then what people program for, everything else. What everything OpenCL is envisioned or promised to do for us in terms of computing, Intel hopes to bring to x86 in general by bringing out a product like this. So OpenCL will run on x86 parts, but it also runs on NVIDIA and AMD's GPUs that don't have anything to do with x86 instructions. So it's a little bit more complex in that regard. So there was simplicity in the design of what Intel was trying to do, but there was incredible complexity in what their software team had to do to make it even close to competitive to what NVIDIA and ATI are doing today. Now, if Intel wanted to develop this product and maybe keep it in stealth mode till 2015, when we're closer to that world of OpenCL dominating everything anyway, then it might be more successful. But they were basically having to write a software renderer for DirectX 10 and DirectX 9 and DirectX 11 and OpenGL. They had to convert those APIs to run natively on x86 processors, but they're just simply not designed to do. And they don't really specify. They say both hardware and software were behind where they'd hoped to be. I would guess that the software was probably more behind than they expected, and that they.
That's what it looks like to me. It's a software, not a hardware issue.
Right. I mean, they showed a Larrabee processor getting 1 teraflops compute power, which is a lot. But I mean, you keep in mind when this project was announced, it was supposed to have been like a second half of 2009 product initially. And since then, well, guess what happened? NVIDIA and ATI have new generations of technology. Right. I mean, the new ATI card gets 2.5 teraflops of raw compute power. So Intel releasing a 1 teraflops maximum compute power, and then how efficient are they at actually applying that compute power to games today? My guess is they were obviously so far behind it wasn't even worth releasing a product and bashing their name in again.
Just shows you can be the biggest company in the world with all the resources in the world. This stuff is hard.
Yes,
you got to give credit to ATI and NVIDIA for leading the way with this stuff. Maybe by not biting off more than they could chew, kind of understanding the business maybe a little better than Intel, but still.
Yeah, I mean, they are progressing their GPU designs closer and closer to CPUs. They're,
Right.
you know, when the GPU first came out, it was completely fixed function, and we have slowly added in programmable options to it, and that will continue. But Intel essentially just wanted to jump all of those steps and go straight from dedicated hardware to completely programmable, and completely programmable is a software headache.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, that was the demo they showed.
Yeah, this is IDF. I'm showing the video from IDF.
And it's just, you know, I mean, it's not, you don't look at that and you go, wow.
No, you don't.
Do that on
Actually,
computer,
yeah.
right? I mean,
it's not that
you
impressive.
You look at it and you go, really, that's all you got right now? I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
So
Heads must have rolled over this one.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence. Pat Gelsinger was kind of the head lead of this. He was the executive that actually, he was the one that said, we're going to crush NVIDIA and ATI with GPU and this kind of stuff. And he's no longer with Intel. He left for another venture. So I'm not convinced that those aren't related in some sense.
Yeah. Big Bang Trinergy. What the? That's a terrible name. It's a new motherboard from MSI.
Yeah, so the Big Bang brand is MSI's new high-end motherboard brand. We posted a video review and a text review of this motherboard on PCPer.com just today. What's interesting about it, the Trinergy is kind of a name, a wordplay that it supports three-way SLI. It's one of the only.
Trinergy.
Yeah, but it's still supposed to be pronounced Trinergy, so, you know, take it for what you will. But P55 motherboards today, the majority of which do not support three-way SLI because the Linfield processor has 16 lanes of PCI Express coming directly from the CPU. And there are and those lanes can be split into 2x8 connections to support two-card SLI or Crossfire. If you wanted to do three-way, you have to add in more logic. So this motherboard integrates the Enforce 200 chip, which is an NVIDIA kind of a custom PCI Express bridge splitter device that accepts as input 16 lanes of PCI Express 2, but outputs two sets of by 16 connections. So the primary connection will get full 16 lanes, and then the second and third connections will get by 8 each, which is more than enough for multi-GPU gaming. So in this way, they can support 3 graphics cards in the same system on a Linfield platform. And I believe it's one other that's kind of labeled as a workstation board from ASUS that implements this type of solution. But this is really meant for the gamer. This is where MSI is taking this brand. It's a high-end brand. They're going to have other models that will come out. Remember, we talked about Lucid and Hydra and the ability to mix and match NVIDIA and ATI cards. That will come out as an MSI Big Bang motherboard in the not-too-distant future as well. But this board offers some really cool features besides three-way SLI. It actually has, I didn't bring it with me, it has a little external device that plugs into the motherboard that you can use to monitor your CPU voltages, your temperatures, anything that you can monitor in the BIOS, you can monitor through this little external box, which I find to be interesting and helpful. You know, you can just plug it in, set it on top of your case. If you're ever wondering, you know, did my CPU fan die or something like that, it will report your fan speeds in there as well. You can actually use it to modify voltages to your processor, to your memory. You can actually use it to overclock while you're in Windows. You can increase the base clock of the processor from this little device. It's just a 3-button left, right, and OK type button. And it has this little tiny LED screen on it to read all this information. So it's a nice little extra, not a requirement, but it's nice to have. It also has very, very high quality componentry in there, meant for overclocking, meant for enthusiasts. But the downside is it is a $349 motherboard.
Oh, that's a lot.
Which is a lot of money. Even for extremely high-end motherboards, it's a lot of money. And considering that MSI themselves have a board that I really like called the P55 GD65 that sells for like $160. It doesn't support three-way SLI. It doesn't have the external monitoring tool. It doesn't have the THX certified audio that the Big Bang Trinergy has. I mean, it's missing a lot of stuff, but if you just want a good quality motherboard that does good overclocking, supports 2 cards for SLI or Crossfire, $160 versus $350, it's a pretty noticeable difference. So really, I mean, they know this. The Big Bang Trinergy boards are individually numbered. They're individually tested.
Are they signed?
They're signed by the inspector.
Mr. MSI. Maybe if you had them signed by the cast members of Big Bang Theory, that would do. Then you could charge that money for them.
Yeah. I mean, they actually should. They had so you got. I mean, it's a little bit like when you get a system from somebody like a Falcon Northwest or something like that.
Right.
Alienware. You felt like you got a custom piece of hardware. Somebody had touched it. Somebody had worked on it. You get a sheet of benchmarks on the motherboard and that kind of stuff. So it does feel like a high-end experience opening the board and looking through all the stuff in it and using it. But it's definitely meant for people who can afford that kind of high-end experience too.
People like you and me, Ryan.
That's right.
Thanks to Ford and Ford Sync, now we too can afford the finest motherboards. We're going to talk more about hardware, but we do want to talk about Ford and Ford Sync. I have a Ford Sync in my new Mustang, and I love it. It's the hands-free Bluetooth media player safety navigation system that comes in many new Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. And if you haven't seen it, I want you to give it a try. Just go to a Ford, Lincoln, or Mercury dealer and say, I don't even need to drive the car. I just want to play with the Sync. Its voice recognition is superb. And the idea is you never take your hands off the steering wheel or your eyes off the road. You just tell the car what you want. Of course, you pair it to your phones, up to, I think, a dozen forms, or more. I thought 25. Anyway, a large number of phones. It means you can play audio from your iPhone or your Droid or your Zune. It has a USB jack. It has an audio jack, so there's nothing really that you can't play audio from. But you also control the audio on the USB-connected devices. It scans through the MP3s, finds the tags, knows them by name. You can say, play the Beatles. You can say, play This Week in Computer Hardware. Or you probably say, play Twitch. Depends on what the tag is. Play Twitch 49, and then it starts playing. It also allows you to say directions, Starbucks, and it'll take you to the nearest Starbucks, or directions, give it an address. You don't need a big screen on this thing. It's not one of those big screen GPSs. You can get that, but this is a lot less. It talks to you. It talks you through it. It's just remarkable. I think you're going to love it. I want you to check it out. You can go to syncmyridepodcast.com for more information. That'll take you to syncmyride.com, which is a website for Ford Sync owners. I love, you have your own website. For instance, it'll send vehicle history reports, vehicle health reports to the website, to your login, and you can see how your car's doing at any time, or every 5,000 miles, or every 10,000. I could go on and on. I just want you to try it. I really do. We're going to be at CES with a couple of Fords, so you can see Sync in action. I'm going to bring my Mustang down, so you can even visit the Twitmobile and watch the Ford Sync in action. SyncMyRidePodcast.com. We thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. It really is a perfect match. I mean, it's a car computer.
Every time you talk about it, sounds really much better than what I have. So
it's better than anything. I have, the other cars, Jennifer's car is a Toyota. J.D. Power and Associates just did a list based on customer satisfaction of the top 10 nav systems, and Ford Sync got 1 and 2 out of the top 10. All the rest were fancy, expensive premium cars. Toyota at the bottom of not the 10 of the entire list. And I'll tell you, it really makes a difference having something that's well thought out, well designed, that works, and it has great voice recognition. I'm a big fan. It really works well.
Cool.
So I see there's some NVIDIA news. They are demoing 3D.
Yeah, so if you remember, not too long ago, I went to New York City for a day, and I came back and got to talk about a lot of products, one of them being an Ion notebook from ASUS, an Ion Net Top from ASUS. One of the things I got to see but couldn't talk about until now is demonstration of new 3D vision panels and 3D Blu-ray technology that's coming out in 2010. So I think one of the things we'll see a lot of at CES, and you can hold me to this when I see you on Friday or Saturday that week, is do we see a lot of TV manufacturers come out and announcing 3D ready televisions?
I think so.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff.
Which cracks me up because I'm underwhelmed by the whole thing. But
yes, I know you personally have to be.
Yeah.
But
you like it, though? I mean, for gaming, I guess it's all about immersive, right? That's what we're going for.
Right. It has its places, right? So, when I first tested 3D Vision, and I bought I borrowed, quote, a Mitsubishi 65-inch 3D ready DLP TV from a local vendor here and played Left 4 Dead on it.
I remember that.
That was awesome.
You were blown away. Yeah.
That was awesome. I mean, because you just had this enormous screen, and it was, friends would come over. Remember, I took the setup to Best Buy and had people playing it in the Best Buy store, and people were generally shocked.
Yeah.
So I think 3D will make a big difference as long as it's comfortable for people in terms of, not causing eye strain and that type of thing.
Well, you do have to wear shuttered glasses on these, right?
Right. So there's different technologies. One is, if you look at what the movies have today, it's polarized lenses.
Right.
So, and that doesn't require
you
to have expensive
and you don't
glasses.
have to be plugged in.
It requires expensive hardware. Right. So the
playback hardware, the screen, the projectors have to be expensive, but you can't have an expensive device that you give patrons as they come in. You can't have a powered device. Yeah, exactly. So this was designed for theaters to have the cheapest possible glasses. On the other hand, at home, you could have expensive glasses.
Right. And that's where you come in with the different technologies that NVIDIA has kind of put together for their 3D Vision brand. So they have monitors, 22-inch, and now they're showing 24-inch 1920 by 1080 panels that are true 120 hertz LCDs, which means they can accept 120 hertz input, that they don't just use filler between the 60 hertz that they actually receive. That's kind of the key. And then you have shuttered glasses that synchronize with the screen through an infrared data connection, so it knows when to flop which eye on or off, left or right. So NVIDIA has had all of that in place for quite a long time. And what they kind of showed off, so one of my complaints before was that the biggest panel you could get was 22 inches, and it was 1680 by 1050. Well, as we just said, I game on a 30-inch monitor. I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice going from a 30-inch to a 22-inch display at a much, much lower resolution, even though I really liked the 3D effect. So they're announcing at CES, and they'll be showing some 24-inch panels that are 1920 by 1080. So 24 inch is a little bit bigger. It's much more, 22 and 24 are actually pretty standard for consumers nowadays. But the 1920 by 1080 is really important because obviously you can run your game at a higher resolution. But if you wanted to be able to watch these upcoming 3D Blu-ray movies, you needed to have a 1080p panel. Otherwise it would kind of, wouldn't be as good, I guess.
Right.
So I got to see some early footage from a couple of movies running in 3D Blu-ray. It's actually, again, I thought it was pretty cool. And I don't know what the majority of our viewers and listeners think about movies and going to 3D movies, but I mean, a whole lot of movies are coming out like this now. And
Hollywood's buying it, and I talked to somebody on the radio show this weekend who designs 3D stuff for Hollywood, and he said, look, it's not about gimmicks. It's not the old, forget Vincent Price and House of Wax,
Right.
It's about an immersive experience, and if the filmmakers are true to the story and they use it for, judiciously to make it a more realistic movie, okay, it's going to work. And it's a way to get people in the theaters, which is, something they need.
Right.
So I'm a little more, positive about it than I was.
It's ironic that that's what movie theaters hope that they will draw people in, whereas Blu-ray is coming out with
coming right to the home
technology as well.
Exactly.
So what's interesting about this is it's a different codec, it's a different format that the data is actually stored in. So you can actually, obviously, you can get the DVD, you can get the Blu-ray, you can watch it in 2D, or you can watch it in 3D mode. What's unfortunate is all of the GPUs that are out today from NVIDIA, with the exception of one, don't support decode acceleration of this Blu-ray 3D codec. It's called AVC MVC multi-view codec. So it's obviously giving you two different angles that it merges into one with the glasses. So that's kind of the aggravating part. You can have a really powerful GPU today, like a GeForce GTX 285, and it won't support decode acceleration for 3D Blu-ray. But if you have one of these $99 GeForce GT240 cards that just came out, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's a low-end card, but because it was a new GPU, they designed this decode acceleration support in there from the ground up. And they're telling me that it is not something they can add in through a driver update or anything like that to their existing cards. And I'm not 100% sure on what AMD is doing, I think their 5000 series will support the 3D acceleration or the decode acceleration for 3D Blu-ray. Now, that doesn't mean you can't play it back on your system if you have one of those cards. It just means the CPU will have to do all the work.
Right.
Which, depending on your processor, that may be an issue or it might not. So it's an interesting development. I think we're going to see a whole lot more about 3D for movies and games and that kind of stuff and televisions and the actual hardware at CES in just a few weeks now, I guess, isn't it? Getting close.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
I gotta make sure I finish making all my meetings, I guess.
Yeah, this year's gone by really fast. We've been planning, our CES coverage, and I'm really excited about it. We're going to be doing parties on Wednesday night. Showstoppers is Wednesday. No, I'm sorry.
Did you say parties on Wednesday night?
Yeah, well, not kind of parties, yeah. Kiki and I are going to, we've got this remote system.
Better be invited to these parties.
You can come with us. Colleen is building this remote system with something called the Mushroom Portabella, which is a portable.
Yes, we talked about this.
Yeah, it's a portable EVDO, 3G and 4G in Vegas because they have Clearwire down there. 4G powered streaming video solution. So we're going to bring a camera, this backpack Colleen's building, Kiki and I, and you too, if you want. We'd love you to come with us. Are going to go.
I think Allyn and I will both be at all of those shows.
Please, we'll see you there. It's going to be fun. So these evening shows are how we're going to start. So we'll go around to each booth. We'll talk to everybody, Nokia and everybody. And so that'll be a great kind of preview. And then I understand there's stuff still going on after that. There'll be parties and things. So this is portable. So Kiki and I can get in the cab, and we'll continue to stream wherever we go, and we'll go to parties. We'll see what's going on. So that's Wednesday night. We'll do it again with Showstoppers on Thursday night. Somebody has a suite they've invited us to, so we'll go up to a suite. We want to give the whole idea is if you can watch Twit Live on, what is it, January 6th through 10th, something like that?
7th through the 10th.
7th through 10th. If you can watch Twit Live those 4 or 5 days, it'll be just like you're there.
Now, how big is this battery in this backpack?
We got we're bringing tons. Don't worry, we can go all day.
Colleen's to carry just the batteries.
Yeah. Oh, we got a crew that has we got people carrying batteries, carrying gear, and then Kiki and I'll do it. But I'd love to see you and Allyn and everybody. And so it's going to be a little. I know probably a little chaotic and weird, but I think we can make it work. And we've never no one's ever done this before. Even when Tech TV spent $1 million to cover Comdex and CES in years past. It was on a stage. It was fixed. You had a TV truck. Now with modern technology, I think we can go to the parties, go to the events, and continue to stream. So we're going to do that. There will be a cut down every day. You'll get an hour-long show that's the best of what we saw live.
Cool.
And we are hoping to have sponsors. I think Ford's going to sponsor and some others. I'm going to be using the N900 to stream with Quick when I can't get any other way to get out there. I mean, we're going to make this work. You're going to have the best coverage of CES, but the idea is ground level coverage. So you know what it's like to be at CES. I want to follow you around and I maybe go to some meetings with you. It'd be really cool to see what you do at a meeting. Yeah.
I think what you should, if people want the experience of CES, they need to show you standing in line for cabs.
Yes,
we'll be doing traffic in a cab.
No, we're going to mock people in the cabs because we're going to get somebody. I'm hoping to get Vegas Cabbie to shuttle us around. There's the monorail now too. Makes it a lot easier.
Monorail's great if you're on the east side of the hotels there, but if you're going to Bellagio or Caesars or anything on the west side, it's you got to walk like 1.5 miles to get from your taxi station to the room.
I'll make friends with a hooker. We'll get a ride somehow.
There you go.
We'll find a way to get around. But you're going to get the experience as best we can do it. Live coverage all day.
That's very
Friday,
cool.
All day Saturday, and half day Sunday because it closes down about 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon. So it's going to be really it's crazy. Let's just put it this way. It's crazy. But if we can do it, it'll be fun. It'll be really fun. And I know I love our audience, and I know that they're willing to put up with technical issues and just, bad sound and just weird stuff just because they want the immediacy. So I'm trying to give those wonderful folks who pay the bills here whatever they want.
I'll do my best to participate. So that
we'd love to have you. Everybody's, a lot of the Twits are going to be there. So Paul Thurrott will be there, Dick DiBartolo. We're going to do a Twitch live from CES. as well, and I'm sure there'll be lots to show. Scott Wilkinson, our new home theater guy, will be there with us.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
yeah, it's a great place for him, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I am so happy that we're going, and we're bringing the entire Twit staff down there. The only person who has to stay is John Slanina. Jammer B has to stay here because somebody has to be the Michael Collins of the crew who kind of keeps, okay, it's coming. All the stuff's coming in. I got to put it out.
Right.
It's going to be wild.
Cool.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to it.
The next thing on the list I wanted to show you is, I think we looked at this case before, but I just have figured, click on it.
You need something expensive to go with this $350 motherboard.
Yes, perfect.
We got a case for you.
We got a case. How about an $849 case that doesn't come with a power supply or anything like that?
It doesn't even have a power supply for that price?
Well, I mean, it's got a spot for you to put one, but I mean, you got to buy your own, Leo.
Well, because it is kind of unique.
What do you expect for $849?
It is an unusual looking doohickey. It
is very unusual looking. It's co-designed by Thermaltake and BMW, the same BMW of the Auto Group. It's actually really, I think it's really, really cool looking. But I would never pay $850 for a case.
Even with the $350 motherboard, you wouldn't? The
case that I built, the case that I put my system in, the Corsair 800D, was $279, and I thought that was really expensive for a high-end case. Now, this one's cool. Obviously,
this looks like architecture, though. This looks like the Science Fiction Museum in Seattle or something, or the Guggenheim.
And that's what they're going for. I mean, I don't really know. You can buy this case for $849. My guess is they sell less than 50, maybe, of this case. Where they'll probably use it is in super high-end system builds for I think I saw an announcement that iBuyPower, one of the smaller system builders that does enthusiast designs and stuff like that, is using this case for an upcoming product they're building. But I mean, it's functional. It has some interesting ideas. The cable routing, you can see there how it goes into the back there. Yeah. It's very cool. It's very clean.
Easy. I would imagine easy to work with because everything's very accessible as these things swivel out.
Yeah. The only thing I would worry about is cable lengths being long enough to reach everything you need to reach. But like there, you can see what those are all SATA docking bays for hard drives and that kind of stuff.
How many is that? 4, 5, 6?
It looks like 6 of them there. They all have individual access lights and that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff, and it's very well designed.
Is it noisy? Well, I guess I guess cooling is actually better, or you think?
Cooling is, I think it will be moderately noisy, but it should be efficient in terms of cooling. They also built in for that as well. So, if you're rich, maybe, you got some money you need to spend before tax season comes up, and this is somehow a write-off for you, then take a look at the Thermaltake Level 10 case.
What kind of motherboards?
Cool. What's that?
Is ATX?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll support ATX. I think it'll do eATX as well. So if you wanted to put like workstation class stuff in there, you could do that. Could do that too, but off. We'll say, to put it nicely.
$849. I'd rather talk about DirectX. Let's talk about DirectX 11, DX11.
I don't have a whole lot to say here, but
I got pictures. You got
pictures. You can see pictures, lots of pictures of this. But if you bought one of the Radeon 5000 series graphics cards recently, one of the selling points was that it was a DirectX 11 ready graphics card. Well, this is the first DX11 game that was kind of designed that way from almost the beginning. It's Dirt 2, so it's kind of an off-road rally racing game. It's actually a really good game. In terms of if you're into racing at all. So
these are stills, so you don't really get the sense. I guess the detail is there.
Well, some of the advantages,
I think that most of the games that I look at really lack textures are fine. Fur and water's fine, but I want humans to look better. They look
now. If you look
scary.
at that flag, if you scroll down, is there a different view of that flag? Or is there just that one image?
That's just the image.
Just that one. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, DX11 is letting them do, I think what's probably most interesting is tessellation. That lets them increase the number of polygons that a item has.
You can see that on this one. This is a picture of the ground, and look at the detail. Or that might be a texture map, but the detail in the grass.
The improved water effects, the improved flags and cloth and that kind of stuff are done through tessellation. So the designer really only needs to design for a handful of polygons, and they can use a tessellation engine to dramatically increase that detail level and make the flag look much closer to cloth than 3 or 4 triangles or squares waving in the wind and that kind of stuff. You get other advantages from DX11.
You'll find these pictures on the there's two versions of the flag. You'll find these pictures on AMD's Flickr stream, which is AMD.unprocessed. So there's two pictures of the flag.
Yeah, so you can kind of see a before and after.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people say, well, wow, that's great. It's a flag that you see. and that's true. You can't argue with that, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's the flag in the background on the map. But those kinds of effects will trickle down to character cloth models coming soon and that kind of stuff for, you know, your role-playing games, your action games, and that kind of stuff. This is kind of interesting.
They call about the dynamic range, how you know, because a lot of games are dark, and having detail in dark is kind of neat.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see this in movies. Yeah. Personally. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, high dynamic range lighting is improved, and the performance on it is improved in DirectX 11, which is also key. HDR is a very compute intensive kind of function for a GPU. Right. So DirectX 11 has a lot of these kind of incremental improvements, and it has other advantages, DX compute being the big one, where you'll be able to developers will be able to start computing other things besides graphics on the GPUs, like artificial intelligence and that kind of stuff going forward. But obviously we need to have DX11 in place before anybody will want to start doing that, and Windows 7 did that. But if you had a 5000 series card from AMD and you were kind of like itching for a way to validate your purchase,
there you go.
You can pick up Dirt 2.
Better crowds because you have more polygons, so you can have people look different in the crowd.
Correct.
There you go. See, there's a reason.
Then I bet in the game they don't let you actually run into them, but you know, you can always try it. You ever seen those videos of rally racing where they're you know, the Subarus and stuff are going through the backwoods and people are standing 6 to 8 inches away from the track? They're
crazy.
Yeah.
They're nuts. All right, let's get a couple more stories in here before we wrap this up. HP has leaked a little information about some upcoming processors.
Yeah,
and GPUs.
I saw this on Engadget, and I thought it was pretty funny. Apparently, HP just accidentally let leak a system of theirs that will be coming out in 2010. Information about it that when you go to build the system, it mentions things like the Radeon HD 5350 and 5570, neither of which exist today. Whoops.
Whoopsie.
They also mention the Intel Core i3 500 series and Core i5 600 series processors, which haven't been announced. But
I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often, to be honest.
Yeah, actually I am too. It's just kind of nice because you get this big conglomeration of all these different aspects, graphics cards and processors being accidentally announced in the same system. One thing that I thought was pretty cool, they did say they're going to implement, so they have their Media Smart software, I saw for the first time on their touchscreen systems, but it's apparently on all their systems, but it's going to have native Hulu and Netflix support in that program, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So if, you know, people who have never thought about using streaming Netflix or streaming Hulu will get that right away up front with this new HP software.
Neat.
So that's nice.
That's great.
The other thing I had on the list was something you had kind of alluded to earlier.
Oh, this Apple rumor. Yeah, I said it was Larrabee. It's Arendelle. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah.
So
does that make sense? What you're hearing?
Well, so here's the reason. They're not going to reject the processor. They're going to use the processor. What will happen is
they may supply their own graphics card.
They're going to have their own discrete graphics because Arendelle doesn't support OpenCL. The graphics on it doesn't support OpenCL.
Well,
and that was the big push.
That makes sense. Now I understand that.
I mean, that's point blank why. And NVIDIA is making a custom, you know, piece of hardware for Apple. You know, I'm 100% sure this is a customer that they don't want to aggravate in any way.
Lack of OpenCL support. That's it. That's all. You don't need to say anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, Apple pushed that. It's a big thing for them, and if you can't do it, they're not going to release a high-end. These would be for high-end computers, I presume, right?
No, I mean even for the
laptops. Oh, that's right. Arendelle's mobile. That's right. Yeah. So OpenCL is part of their mobile roadmap as well.
Well, I mean, Leopard. That was the newest update, right?
Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard has
implemented OpenCL for everything across the board. So they need to have that's one of their big pushes. So they need to have it everywhere.
I guess you're
so
right.
there's the answer to your why.
That makes perfect sense.
If they were trying to figure it out,
This
but
is
they're
why
not
we
going
need
to bypass the CPU. It's a lower power,
Right.
Higher performing CPU. They'll definitely be including it.
It does add cost, though, to build you're building a laptop with that CPU, and now you've got to add its discrete graphics. That's
and you got to take into account thermal considerations and all kinds of stuff.
That's that's not desirable. Is there no comparable chipset that is a better choice for OpenCL? Why didn't they put OpenCL in it? That's the real question.
I mean, Intel's integrated graphics team has never been great, and the integrated graphics that are going on Clarkdale for the desktop and Arendelle for the mobile are better than what we have on like the G45 today, but only in as much as that they support HD video decode and this kind of stuff, features that are really required. But in terms of gaming performance, it's not going to be any better. And OpenCL was something you had to plan for much more in advance, right? And again, it goes back to Larrabee. I think eventually Intel was hoping Larrabee would dominate the GPU market. More things would be coded for x86 as opposed to OpenCL, and Larrabee would eventually be integrated into CPUs down the line. We're talking 3 or 4 years, Larrabee technology. So they're hoping maybe they didn't need it. But regardless, it doesn't support it, and Apple's not going to let that slide, really. So
a few months ago, you showed us, I thought it was a really cool thumb drive. Was it OCZ that had a eSATA and USB port on it?
Yes.
I loved that idea. But that may be obsoleted because USB 3 is coming, right?
USB 3 is almost here. And the first one, apparently the first company to actually ship a USB 3 ready thumb drive is Super Talent. Remember, Super Talent was the one that made that 64 gig I used that looked like it had the faux wood finish on it.
Yeah.
Well, this one is not famous because of its faux wood finish. This one's famous because it will support speeds up to, what does it say here?
320 megabytes a second.
There you go.
Holy
so apparently
camoli.
200 megs a second native, 320 megs a second using a protocol driver. So, you just plug in a normal computer. If they're saying it will get 200 megs a second if you actually install the driver up to 320.
That's amazing.
And again, the good news is backwards compatible to USB 2.0, 35 megs a second, and even 1.1. So you can still, you don't have, that's what people love USB. I can take this and put it in my mom's computer at home, and it will read. Maybe it's slower, but I can take it to my house and read it at 200, 300 megs a second. They're going to be expensive, but apparently they're going to be available like very soon, maybe before Christmas. If you want the 128 gig model, $650.
I want to see him working on flash card readers with these kinds of speeds.
That would be, you're right. Because I
take a lot of photos.
I take video with my Canon 7D.
Yep.
4 gigabyte video files get taken off there. Yeah. And it's a very long process. Yes, I agree. I hope we see a lot of those at CES, and I hope somebody just lets me take one while I'm there, because I could use it at CES. So.
Ooh, yeah, we're going to be moving around some big data files. So, Super Talent, you might want to give us a ring.
I'll let them know.
No, I don't know how we're going to move that stuff around.
It's good. Now all of a sudden it's like start thinking.
You know what we're doing? We're buying. Or actually, I think we're not going to buy. We're going to rent a camera from Sony. The EX1 is one of it's kind of their bottom of the line Cine Alta cameras, and it records to a proprietary kind of flash card. But Alex Lindsay has found a company that makes a container that you could put regular SD cards into, and it turns it into that expensive proprietary card for cheap.
Right.
So we'll put those in there, and then so everything we record will be on SD cards, and so we just pop those into the Macintosh SD card reader, and we're ready to go with Final Cut.
Yeah, I just ordered like 4 more 32 gig compact flash cards for CES as well. Yeah.
Cheap. It's so cheap now. Finally, I don't know. Did we talk about this OCZ? I think we did, didn't we? Is this another? This is another high-speed SSD.
Yeah, I think we might have. This was an external USB 3.0 SSD that OCZ will be showing at CES. We don't have a whole lot of information of it. There was kind of like a concept picture for it, and then a graph from an older article that I had written about USB 3. Just interesting. USB 3.0 accessories are catching on. This one plus the Super Talent, and I can't be more excited about it. And that is why I put the USB 3.0 ready motherboard in my new system. And hopefully for everybody that wants USB 3 and SATA 6G so they can maybe use SSDs like this when they become available, ASUS is still planning on having this $29 PCI Express by 4 add-on card that will give you 2 USB 3.0 ports and 2 SATA 6G ports for $30.
Wow.
And hopefully we'll be seeing those before Christmas as well.
Wow.
So
this is exciting. This is it's going to be a USB 3 CES. There's no doubt about it. That's
3D USB 3.
3D USB 3.
I don't know what that means, but
well, you know what's funny about CES is, you know, you can kind of prepare for it. You can kind of think about what's going to happen, and obviously there's 2 big stories we're going to look for. But
right.
But you also, I warn everybody, don't go in with too many preconceived notions, because you might be surprised. There might be a story there that you just don't know. There might be something you find that changes everything.
Right.
So you kind of have to go there and be ready to hear something new too.
Yeah. Otherwise, we often, when we kind of plan for these trips, we think, okay, what are the technology tracks we want to follow and ask everybody about. And if you stick too much to that, you'll miss kind of the hidden gem that you might not have otherwise noticed.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I don't get a whole lot of time. Actually, I will have time this year. Everybody else on my team is leaving on Saturday. I'm staying Saturday and Sunday for some other events. Actually, Kelly's coming out as well. So I might actually get to wander around the show floor for a day, something I haven't done in probably 5 years. Look at home theater stuff and all that kind of thing, too.
Well,
should be good.
We can't wait. We're excited. I hope you enjoy this show, too, folks. It's one of our newest shows on the Twit Network. This Week in Computer Hardware. Ryan Shrout has been a great friend of the channel for a year, more than a year now. And it's just great that we can make a podcast out of this. Congratulations on your 2nd episode. Watch the video at the Twit Live. That's live.twit.tv every Wednesday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And then you'll soon be able to see it. If not now, you'll soon be able to see it at twit.tv. You'll be able to download the video, and then the iTunes feed will follow shortly after. And shortly after that, and when I say shortly, I mean anything from a day to 18 months, you'll see it on the Roku box and all the other platforms that you can watch our video on. So we're moving into video big way, and this is a great show for video. It's a very visual show, very interesting show. So catch Ryan's act at PC Perspective. That's pcper.com, and you can email him at ryan@pcper.com. Well, actually, we got an address for you, don't we? Ryan at twit.tv, which just goes to Ryan's PC per address.
Yeah, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. This way you can filter out the weirdos. Ryan at twit.tv. Ryan Shrout, we'll see you next week on This Week in Computer Hardware.